So it's March here in the UK, and March can actually be a really unpredictable time. Sometimes we can have a heat wave, and other times it can get really, really cold. Sadly, this year it's been a rather cold March. It's actually been 10 degrees plus in the day, and this next week is going to drop down to freezing at night. That's not really ideal for the turtles, and I'd rather not risk keeping them out there. So my plan is in this video to bring them in to temporary enclosures for the next couple days, just to keep them safe until it warms up again. It also allows me the opportunity to give the turtles a physical health check, fatten them up with some good food, just so when I introduce them back outside for the summer, they're happy and healthy and ready to go. So it's actually getting rather cold at night today, but it's not freezing tonight. It's actually just going to drop down to 4 degrees, which is perfectly safe for the animals. I've decided to just bring them in anyway right now. One, because I want to make sure I get it done, and two, because tomorrow I don't want to be out there freezing my nuts off in this cold water, which is probably still about 4 degrees. I just saw the map turtle jump in and swim down to the bottom, so it's probably best if I do just grab them out and hold them over the week. So here I go. Oh, feels like I've got the big female yellow-bellied slider. There she is. And then the big female cooter. This is the other yellow-bellied slider here. There's the other cooter. And there's the map. Who's getting huge now. Nowhere near that big before, but it actually has a bit of a incorrect shell growth there. But yeah, awesome. Okay, so I've brought them inside and placed them in these Rubbermaid containers. The last thing I really have to do for these guys is just get some bits of land area just so they can get up out of the water and dry themselves off if need be. There's no filtration in here because it's only going to last them for about 3 to 4 days, so all I'll do is just do water changes just to get them by, really. They're not like fish that need constant aeration and everything, and if I keep on top of the water quality and everything, they should be fine. They haven't been eating because it's been cold, so the chances are they probably won't produce a lot of waste anyway. But I'll just go through now and show you them all set up. So this is the oldest female yellow-bellied slider. Now this one probably would be perfectly fine left outside, but I just don't want to risk it really because she is very old. She was brought in from someone who found her hanging around one of the drainage sort of areas in a farm. So she's been released for a long time, and judging by her sort of shell and everything, she looks rather old. So she's probably pushing well over 30, possibly even 50s, quite easily. But she's a gorgeous girl, and I care about her a lot. So I brought her in here. So she's in one of these here, which she'll get a nice sort of area for her to climb out there. Here's the other yellow-bellied slider, Trichemi scripta, and there this one is here. Same sort of setup. But this one, as you can see, has a slightly different shell. I'll get them out in a minute and show them a bit more in detail. But I think this one's beautiful. I'll get this one a nice setup as well. And in here these are one of my personal favourite species. This is Pseudemys concina, the river cooter, and they are a fantastic animal. Now you can see they look very different in shape. This one here was actually raised. They came from 2 different people. This one came from the same person with the yellow-bellied slider. So what I reckon might have happened is that in the enclosure that it was in, the other one sort of sat on the other one to bask, hence why it's a bit flatter. You see there's a lot of new shed on there that's shedding its old skin, which is a fantastic sign in a way, because it means that they've been doing really well in the pond. And then this is the other one. This one here, this is the same. This is another river cooter. This one came from a loving family that just felt like they needed a bigger enclosure because it was a fish tank. But look at the size of this girl here. She is gorgeous and a beautiful animal. And then finally we have my map turtle, Greptemys Geographica or Pseudo Geographica, I can't remember exactly, but this is one I've had for ages. It has a bit of shell damage. It started curling here. I believe it's due to a long time ago it had some shell rot just right in that divot, as well as that darker piece there, but that is long gone. That was years ago. So I think what might happen was when that happened, a bit of soft tissue, so it's sort of grown a bit wonky. I'll just have to keep an eye on that, but it's looking a lot better than what it used to. Not to mention, after I've moved it in this pond, it stops going that sort of flat shape and a bit more rounder, how you see them in the wild. So I think this is a really great species, and I'll just have a bit closer look in a minute at them. But this one's once again in a this one's actually a pre-formed pond, so hopefully it can't climb out of this one. Worst case scenario for this one, it climbs out and wanders off. The other ones I'm a bit worried about, because if they get into some of the other cages they could bite something, but this one would be perfectly fine. But this is just a standard pre-formed pond. But yeah, that is the turtles in their temporary setups until I can move them back outside. Okay, it's day 2 of the turtles being inside the shed. They are doing fine. They have muddied their water up quite a bit, to be honest. So what I'm basically going to do now is I'm just going around with a bucket and scooping out a large majority of that water. Not all the water though, because I don't want to change the water temperature too much. But I'm just going to replace a lot of the water to make sure the water stays nice and clean. Now where I am in the UK, the water quality is quite good. There's not a lot of chlorine in the water, if any. I can test it a lot of the time, and where I actually work is right next to me, and I test the water there all the time as well. And the chlorine levels in the water is practically non-existent. If you do live in an area of the UK or the world where chlorine or chloramine is present in your water, it's very important to use a dechlorinator. That will help remove the chlorine out of the water. However, you've got to remember, when you do that chemical exchange, I guess, or chemical reaction will actually create some ammonia. So you do all that water changes and everything, you might end up with some ammonia by doing the dechlorinator, but it's a small price to pay to make sure that your animals don't have chlorine in the water. Chlorine is very bad. If you keep your animals permanently in a chlorinated sort of area, especially even if it's tap water, your animals, especially turtles, may eventually go blind. So it's something to always keep a lookout for and make sure you avoid if possible. Okay, so I'm just going to go around, kick out a load of water, and yeah. Alright, so I've just tipped out the water and I'm actually filling them back up. I'm actually going to fill them up a bit more than I did last night, because I want to ensure that if the turtles flip over, they have the ability to flip back over. If it's too shallow, once they flipped over, the weight of them being upside down is quite difficult to turn back over. So if I put a bit more water in there, they'll be able to right themselves a bit easier and avoid being stuck upside down, which could be rather risky. When it comes to the land areas, I did put some in. However, I found it just didn't really work too well. They seem to sort of either collapse the whole things, or as they go into it, just wasn't graceful and they were clunking around. So because it's only a couple days, I'm basically just going to keep them in the water sort of area. In the cold, they will literally just be spending their entire time under the water anyway, only popping up for some air really rarely. So it's not going to be an issue for them too much. The only thing I need to just make sure of is the water quality staying clean, which is what I'm doing now, because you don't want to introduce anything like shell rot or problems in that sort of way. But it should be perfectly fine. It's only for a couple days and it's very temporary. So you've got to excuse the mess behind me. But now that they're warmed up and everything, I thought it might be a good idea and a good opportunity to show you something I find very interesting, and that's how the shells grow, completely dependent on the animal's situation and rearing, I guess. So this one here is the largest and oldest female. This is my yellow belly slider, Trachemys scripta, and she most likely was released into the wild a long time ago. No doubt from someone who no longer could keep them, so chances are kept them in a too small enclosure beforehand to then release them. And you can see from the shell, it's very domed, it's quite deep, and because it's this animal's rather old, it has these sort of bumps and things. That could also be caused by more of a higher protein level in their diet, where yellow belly sliders are typically quite herbivorous in nature. They will eat protein, however, if you give them the opportunity. So you do like to give them a little bit of a mix. And this one here was also raised in an aquarium. However, how this one was raised, well, it was kept outside when it was a nice warm day, but brought inside into the aquarium with another turtle. Now I did actually see that aquarium when it was still in there, and the water level was fairly low, so you can see the shell is more of a lower sort of situation. However, if you go into the nature, you'll probably find them with that sort of shell there, but it's had a really good diet, hence why the shell is as smooth and perfect as it is. And this is a good example of a lovely healthy animal here. So these are two exactly the same animals, exactly the same species, and just the contrast to shell is rather incredible. And then another example of this is these two here, which are the same species, possibly different subspecies, but these are both river cooters, and you can see here they are both different. The reason why I think they possibly might be different subspecies is we almost got away from me there, is their marginal scoot on this one is much more flayed than the other one. Now they're all females here, so that is something to remember. All females do get larger than the males. You can see, I think I showed you yesterday, this one is shedding. I find a lot of people online like to offer these guys like a little sort of scratching area. Obviously in a pond this comes off naturally on its own, but because it's been over winter, it's just sort of been slowly flaking off. But it is a good sign that these guys have been growing quite healthily, and yeah, you can see the whole thing is sort of flaking off in these sort of chunks here. The plastron, which is the bottom part of the shell here, is quite tanned, full of algae, and like I said, the old shed here. That's a good sign. It's been sitting in the water for a while, in the mud, and blimey, those claws are sharp. But how you tell the difference between a male and female typically is males are smaller and they have larger tails, females are larger and have tiny little tails. So here is the baby map turtle that I got fairly recently. This is the smallest one out of the two. They're growing rather quickly, but obviously being just two of them together, one of them may grow quicker than the other one. However, now I have two other turtles which are doing rather well now. I'd like to quickly add there, which is great. But this here is a false map turtle, something you'll probably get at a pet shop around this size. And it's very important to remember, even this species here will get to at least this species here. Now these are one of the smaller species of turtles you can go for that are riverine. Now what I mean by riverine is they like fast flowing water from rivers like the Mississippi, unlike things like the musk turtles, which like these sort of slower water areas at the majority of the time, or shallower water that they can walk across the bottom. And here are the two turtles I recently got. They are doing really well. They've become a lot more active now. This here is the musk. This here is the razorback musk. Now the pink has sort of died back on the Razorback musk, so it looks like it's settling down. I just got to watch out for swelling and things, because this one's looking rather a bit chunky now, which could be a sign of some form of issues there. So I just got to keep an eye out. But they're becoming really active and rather feisty, so good signs so far. I just have to make sure they're doing okay. I might even take a trip to the vet just to give them a once over with a professional to ensure that they are doing perfectly fine. I just got to weigh out my options really, because I don't want to stress these guys out too much considering they are so small. So I'm going to put them back now with that in mind. And of course, let's not forget the other species in this shed here. This is the baby alligator snapping turtle, and I don't know if you can tell, but it has grown quite a bit since the video I posted a couple months ago. I haven't, to be honest, been feeding it too much, because whenever I do put food in there, it doesn't seem to be taking it. However, I do have a load of ram's horn snails breeding in its enclosure, in its setup, so chances are it's chowing down on those rather well, because it is growing and it's doing well. I really try not to pick it up too much, so this is a very rare occurrence, because what I've found online with these guys and everything to do with them is that they can be rather shy and reclusive and stress out easily. So I'm going to pop it back now, but there we go. There's the alligator snapping turtle, a very cool species. Okay, the final thing I'm doing, and yes, this is not a turtle, is I've got these sort of broken up bits of really old concrete slab. Now, because they're really old and weathered and everything, they shouldn't leach out anything into the water. That's something you have to be careful of with fresh concrete and bricks, but with old stuff, you shouldn't have to worry about it too much. But the reason I've got this is actually quite important. Now, the boxes that I'm holding the turtles in are quite slippery. They're made of a plastic, which is very good to make sure the environment is quite sterile and clean. However, it's not ideal for the turtles to grip hold of. So popping one of these on the bottom will help them grip their front or back legs into it, enabling them to push themselves slightly up, sort of in that sort of angle, to pop their heads out of the water if they want to stick their heads out and catch a breath. The only other option is to build them a ramp out. However, it's a temporary situation, and it's probably safer for them to just stay where they are for the next couple of days until this weather sort of subsides. So that's what I'm doing. I'm popping a couple of these in so they can sort of stick their heads out quite comfortable, and it's a good sort of opportunity to allow them to do that, just to make sure, double make sure that they can actually stick their heads out fine and comfortably. Okay, so that is day 2. I don't know how many days I'm going to do of this. This might be the final thing. So I'm going to leave you here at this second day. Hope you did find this interesting, and I'll see you later. Whoa, it's cold. Day 3, and it's very, very cold. Right now, it's just about half 7 at night, and it's around 1 degree. It's going to drop down really low tonight, and early on today it actually snowed and then began to hail rather heavily. So it shows the March sort of weather here in the UK does go a bit wacky from time to time. Being so cold, I'm not going to do as heavy of a water change as I did yesterday. I'm probably going to take out 2 or 3 buckets in each of the holding receptacles, and I'm going to just fill them up like that. Now the water in these right now is a bit murky because they have been pooping and shedding and doing all their things, so it's very important that I do go through and make sure their water quality is up to standard. But yeah, nothing really special about this day, just very, very cold. Hopefully by I think it's Monday next week, today is Wednesday, we should be in the clear and ready to pop them back outside for the rest of the year. Alright. This is a Saturday, so it's I think it's been 4 days in the shed for the turtles. I'm just fitting them up again now. I've just been giving them water changes daily. It's getting a bit more difficult now because the temperature's dropped rather substantially, but I just gotta make sure the turtles are safe, and hopefully it looks like after the weekend is done, the weather's gonna go back up to where it was before, and it's gonna start, the cobweb is going to start to get even warmer, so I'll be able to put the turtles out there. You can see the tarantula sitting there. A quick thing to add is I have been feeding them a bit now. The turtles have woken up to the point where, because it's quite warm in the shed, to where the metabolism has sort of kick-started again. So what I've been doing is feeding them light foods, things like romaine lettuce, which is a lot of water, not a lot of protein or anything in it, which is good for them. Particularly the cooters like that, which you would have seen in the last day yesterday. I'm just doing the same for all the other turtles, as well as sprinkling a bit of shrimp, some of the turtle diet mixes, and I've also chucked in a couple earthworms and things like that, things with a bit of calcium in them and a bit of nutrients in there, just to keep them over till I can pop them outside and give them their proper heavy feedings. Obviously, the more I feed when they're in these small containers, the more they'll pollute the water, so the more regularly I will have to clean them out. I am doing, say 50% water changes daily with the hose. I don't want to be doing more than that at the minute because the hose water is quite cold because it's off an outside tap. So 50% is the most I'm going to do really, and that fluctuation is still a bit still a bit problematic, or can be. The main thing I've found when it comes to animals, particularly reptiles like turtles, when it comes to respiratory problems and things to do with the cold, is that it's not actually a lot of the time the water temperature that you have to be concerned about. It's actually the air temperature you have to be concerned about a lot of the time. The water can drop down fairly low, say 4 degrees, and if they're coming up to the surface and breathing warm air, that shouldn't affect them. But if they start breathing in a lot of cold air, freezing cold air, that's in their lungs, and that can cause respiratory problems. It leads to pneumonia, horrible infections inside the body, and that will eventually kill the turtle. Not saying that cold water won't harm your turtle, it's just cold air will affect your turtle a lot quicker, especially cold dry air, which you get in the UK winter. But being in a nice heated humid shed, that is definitely not going to happen for these turtles. But of course I am taking the turtles out every day and making sure they are looking good and healthy. They are being more awake than I have ever seen them, to be honest, and it's kind of making me want to set up a large indoor pond for the turtles, because I miss this behaviour from them, especially the cooters down here, which you can see there. Ignore the rubbish, which you can see them there. They're very active, very personal turtles that I completely forgot about, and you sort of miss them being out in the outside ponds. They sort of become more wild and skittish and scared, which is something that I need, because it means that there's less chance of predators and people coming to nick them. But if I have them inside, I get to see them a lot more and have that interaction that I love. But that's probably something down in the future. I might, for the cooters, set up an indoor pond for the winter time. So at least then I get half the time with them in the winter and they don't go through a hibernation. I don't know, I'll have to see and have a think. Sunday, and it's still very cold. Tomorrow, however, it looks like the night temperature's going to drop down to only 9 degrees. So hopefully I'll be able to get the turtles out for the next couple of days. However, on I think Thursday night next week, it's now forecasting to drop again to 2 degrees, which is still a bit cold. So I have the choice of either keeping them in these tubs for the next week or getting them out tomorrow and a couple of days, and then deciding whether to bring them in or not. Then I probably will do it for another couple of days until the temperature goes back up. But I want to get them outside so they can walk around a bit, spread their legs out, get some natural sunlight. So tomorrow is the day that these guys will be able to go back out into their pond for at least a couple of days. And yeah, it should be right. Because I've been water changing them with hose water and it's still been fairly cold water, they should be perfectly fine to go outside into that sort of cold water outside. That's, you know, around about 5 to 8 degrees depending on the temperature of the day. Now it is in sunlight, the pond, so it should be on that high range, around 8 degrees. So because I've been doing this pond water, it takes a while for this water to warm up to this really hot room. So they have been kept in sort of medium sort of temperature water around 8 degrees, or a little bit more than that, maybe 10 to 12. So they should be perfectly fine, and of course, as long as you acclimate them appropriately, they'll be perfectly fine to go out. And these guys will be perfectly fine to go out tomorrow, and then I'll probably have to bring them in again. But nonetheless, Sunday, I think it's the 3rd or the 4th, I have no idea anymore. I'm going to do their quick bucket water changes again, and I'll see you tomorrow hopefully when I can release them, if the weather is good enough. Okay, so it's Monday afternoon and it's right now 14 degrees outside. The sun isn't out, however, but it's nice and warm, or good enough for these guys. The water temperature is practically the same in these tanks here and the pond out there. So I'm going to pop them back outside for another couple days. Sadly, the forecast kind of shows that the weather's going to turn again. By the looks of it, Thursday is going to start dropping down to the negatives again, or maybe a bit later. I think it's Saturday, which is okay. If it's for the last couple days, I can always whip them out and chuck them in these setups for a night or two, just to make sure that they're okay. But yeah, I'm going to pop these guys outside now, and hopefully they are happy. I mean, they've done really well so far for a couple days. I've gotten to see the turtles, got to enjoy the turtles. I've actually bought some fish food that's quite high quality, I guess, to see if they want to try some of that, because I have got goldfish outside in the ponds. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pop them outside. Okay, so of course the first turtle that's going to go in is the big river cooter here. Alright, we'll just pop her on the side here. And away she goes. Time to get the other couple turtles. She's going to probably swim around and realise where she is again. Here I have the map turtle and the other river cooter. Alright, away you go. There you are. And the water is crystal clear. I mean, that one just kicked up a bit of the water, but it's super clear. What I've done is basically submerge the pipe on the top end of the pond underneath a load of gravel, so that has basically acted as a good biological filtration, as well as it traps all those particles in it for the beneficial bacteria and all these different microorganisms to break down the matter, and it's created a super clear, crystal clear water. That's no doubt going to have an algae outbreak, but that's perfectly fine and natural. And the final two turtles are two yellow belly sliders here. Okay. Off we go. And you can see now where the turtles have kicked up the soil under the bottom there. But there's the cooter chilling, nice and happy. exploring the nice big pond again. Probably getting used to the weather and everything, of course. But yeah, they're doing perfectly fine. Look at that, beautiful. But you can see the pump there, so it is fairly clear. But they are kicking up the sediment, which is sort of a mix of clay and different broken down bits of material. Completely natural, and if anything, really healthy for their skin, almost like a mud bath. There's 5 turtles in here, and they have the choice of this bottom pond here or this top pond, and you can see how crystal clear this water is. Now the pipe comes up here and then goes under here, so this is actually where all the sediment is trapped and then broken down by all the different organisms and biological creatures and things. There is some algae growing along the top of that sediment there, and what I'll probably do is get some nice aquatic plants and plant them into that so they can tap into that nutrients and basically store it in their leaves and grow, and then I can actually trim those back and remove that energy essentially. There's also a bee. Don't know if you can see that bee. Where has he gone? There he is. So you know it's warm when the bees are out. It was negative last night, and now the bees are out. And you can actually see the goldfish just underneath that pipe there. Okay, you can see they've already stirred this up. And there you go, there she is. Okay, so that is the video. Hopefully you found that entertaining in some way. That was me dealing with the weird March climate that we sometimes have. Sometimes it's a heat wave, and other times it's bloody cold. Chances are the weather looks like it's going to drop down in another couple of days, so when that happens I'm going to bring the turtles in again for a little bit, but for now they'll be perfectly fine outside in their pond that they spent the majority of this rather mild winter in. But anyway, that's the video, and I hope you did find it interesting. Click that subscribe button to keep up to date with anything else I do on the channel, anything turtle related, invert related, or any other animal I have. You'll be able to find that on the channel there. Okay, I do have an Instagram account. I'll probably link that in the description below as well. And yeah, that's it really. Thank you for hanging out with me for this video. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone.